Stop throwing your money directly into the trash can. Every time you chop the end off a leek or toss a wilted head of romaine into the bin, you're essentially flushing a tiny, organic gold mine down the drain. We've been conditioned to think that once the vegetable leaves the grocery store shelf, its life cycle is a one-way street to the landfill. But that's a flat-out lie. Most of what you call garbage is actually a biological battery just waiting for a jumpstart. I've spent over 20 years in the dirt, mastering the art of the infinite harvest. And I can tell you right now, the grocery stores don't want you to know how easy this is. They'd much rather have you coming back every week to pay $5 for a plastic-wrapped bunch of herbs that you could be growing on your windowsill for 0 cents. I know, it sounds like some kind of magic bean fairy tale, but stick with me. We aren't just talking about saving a few pennies here and there. We're talking about building a literal survival pantry in your kitchen that survives inflation, supply chain collapses, and those annoying out-of-stock signs. If you're tired of watching your hard-earned pension or paycheck disappear into a grocery bag that's half empty, you're in the right place. But before we get into the how, you need to understand the what. Because honestly, some of the things you're tossing out right now are the easiest things to bring back to life. Take the humble green onion. Most people chop the green part, look at the white hairy bulb, and toss it. That is a massive mistake. You're looking at a plant that is practically begging to live. If you've got a glass of water and a sunny spot, you have an infinite supply of onions. But it's not just the easy stuff. We're going to get into some things today that will genuinely shock you. Things like pineapples and even ginger roots that most people think are one and done. Now, you might be asking yourself, Porter, I don't have a green thumb. I kill plastic plants. Here's the secret. Nature does 90% of the heavy lifting. These plants want to grow. They are hardwired for survival. You just have to stop getting in their way. Think about the last time you bought celery. It's expensive, it's bulky, and half the time it goes limp before you can finish the bunch. What if I told you that the butt of that celery, the part you usually hack off and discard, is actually the most valuable part of the entire plant? When you see that first tiny, bright green heart start to peek out from the center of a scrap you were about to throw away, it changes something in your brain. It's a win against the system. And if you're finding this helpful already, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It tells me you're ready to take control of your food source. We're going to walk through 25 specific scraps that are going to turn your kitchen into a high-production farm. And no, you don't need a tractor or a backyard. Let's start with the stuff that's probably sitting in your crisper drawer right now, starting to look a little sad. You see a dying vegetable. I see a comeback story. Wait until you see what happens when you put a simple leek stump in a shallow bowl of water. In 48 hours, you'll see movement. In a week, you'll have a garnish. In a month, you've got dinner. But it gets even better than onions and leeks. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible in a standard kitchen. Think about the last time you bought a head of romaine lettuce. You probably hacked off the bottom inch, tossed it in the bin, and didn't give it a second thought. Big mistake. That butt of the lettuce is actually a biological engine. If you place it in a shallow bowl of water, just enough to cover the bottom half inch, within 3 days, you're going to see new, vibrant green leaves pushing out from the center. It's like watching a magic trick in slow motion. And it isn't just romaine. This works for bok choy, cabbage, and even that expensive organic celery that seems to double in price every time you visit the store. Now, here is where most people mess up, and why they think they don't have a green thumb. They leave the plant in the water for too long. Water is your jumpstart, but it isn't the long-term fuel. Once those roots start trailing out and that new growth hits an inch or two, you've got to move it to soil. If you leave it in the water, it'll eventually rot, and you'll end up with a smelly mess on your counter instead of a salad. Moving it to a small pot of dirt is like moving from a cramped studio apartment to a mansion. The plant takes off. You're going to love this next one because it's the biggest retail scam in the produce aisle. Fresh herbs. We've all been there. You need 3 sprigs of basil for a recipe, but the store forces you to buy a plastic clamshell for $6. 3 days later, the rest of the bunch is a black, slimy mess in your fridge. Here's the secret the grocery store mafia doesn't want you to know. If you take a healthy 4-inch stem of basil, mint, or even cilantro, strip the bottom leaves, and put it in a glass of water, it's going to grow a whole new root system. But it gets even crazier. Once those roots are about 2 inches long, you pot that scrap up. Now, instead of buying a $6 plastic box every week, you have a literal herb factory on your windowsill that gives you free flavor for months, if not years. I've seen people save $50 a month just on herbs and greens alone. That's $600 a year staying in your pocket instead of being handed over to a corporate giant. But it's not just about the money. There's a specific kind of peace that comes from knowing that even if the trucks stop rolling for a week, you've got a buffet growing in your kitchen. It's about taking the power back, one stem at a time. I know some of you are looking at your kitchen right now thinking, Porter, I don't have the space for 25 pots. You don't need it. We're talking about vertical space, windowsill real estate, and utilizing the dead zones in your home. You'd be shocked at how much food you can produce in a space no bigger than a shoe rack. Now, you might be asking, what about the heavy hitters? The stuff that actually fills you up? That's where things get really interesting. Because while lettuce and herbs are great for the soul, we need to talk about the survival crops, the stuff that can actually sustain you when things get tight. I'm talking about the roots, the tubers, and the tropicals that most people think are impossible to grow at home. Wait until you see what you can do with a single sprouted potato or a dead piece of ginger from the back of your pantry. Most people see an eye on a potato and think it's gone bad. I see a potato eye and I see 10 pounds of free food. But there's a specific technique to ensure you don't just grow a vine, but actually produce a harvest. And if you're finding this rebel gardening approach useful, go ahead and give that like button a tap. It helps get this message out to more people who are tired of being overcharged for basic nutrition. Ready to move into the advanced scraps? Listen, this is where we separate the casual kitchen gardener from the absolute food security pro. We've covered the greens and the herbs, but now we're moving into the heavy hitters. These are the crops that actually put calories on the plate and real money back into your retirement fund. Let's talk about the potato. You know that bag in the back of your pantry? The one where the potatoes have started growing those weird, alien-looking white eyes. Most people see those and think, gross, these are spoiled. Wrong. Those eyes are literally the plant trying to feed you. Each one of those sprouts is a potential plant that can yield 5 to 10 new potatoes. You don't even need a garden. You can grow these in a heavy-duty trash bag or a 5-gallon bucket on a tiny balcony. Cut that potato into chunks, making sure each piece has at least 2 eyes. Let them dry out for a day so they scab over. That's the secret to preventing rot. And then bury them in some loose soil. But it's not just about the spuds. Let's talk about the culinary gold, ginger and turmeric. Go look at the price per pound for fresh ginger next time you're at the store. It's astronomical. But here's the kicker. That knobby little root is a rhizome. It wants to spread. If you find a piece of ginger with a little green bud on the end, you've hit the jackpot. Soak it overnight. Stick it in a pot with the bud facing up, and give it some indirect light. It takes a little patience. Ginger isn't a sprinter. It's a marathon runner. But eventually, you'll have a beautiful, tropical-looking plant that you can harvest from indefinitely. You just reach into the soil, snap off what you need for your stir-fry, and let the rest keep growing. Now, we have to talk about the holy grail of kitchen scraps, the pineapple. Most people think you need a plantation in Hawaii to grow one of these. You don't. You just need a kitchen and a little bit of porter-style grit. Next time you buy a pineapple, don't hack the top off. Grab the leafy crown and give it a firm twist. It should pop right off. Strip away the bottom few layers of leaves until you see those tiny brown bumps. Those are root primordia. Stick that crown in a glass of water for a few weeks until you see a solid root system. Then move it to a pot. Yes, it's going to take a year or two to produce a fruit. But in the meantime, you have a gorgeous, exotic houseplant that you got for the price of a dessert. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, Porter, but does it really make a difference? Let me tell you, when you realize you haven't bought garlic, onions, or herbs in 6 months because your windowsill is doing all the work for you, it feels like you found a glitch in the matrix. You're no longer just a consumer. You're a producer. And that feeling of walking over to your window to shop for dinner? That's what true independence looks like. We've covered 25 different ways to turn your trash into a treasure chest. But the most important step isn't reading about it. It's doing it. I want you to go to your kitchen right now. Look at that cutting board. Find one scrap, just one, and put it in a glass of water today. Start small. Start today. Because the best time to start your infinite garden was 10 years ago. The second best time? Right now.